This session is called Beliefs as Self-Fulfilling Prophecies and the Optimistic Mindset. In the last section, we looked at how our thoughts shape our subjective reality, our feelings, and how we can perceive the same thing from different perspectives. But our thoughts not only change our individual, subjective reality, but they can even change the objective reality. I will tell you how. Some decades ago, psychology regarded optimism with some suspicion. It was anxious that it could encourage a fool's paradise approach to life. The fear was that we humans wouldn't be equipped to face life's challenges and hardships if we lived with our heads in the clouds, deluding ourselves that life was a bed of roses. Early works considered optimism naivety or denial, and in the 1970s, optimism was even considered a psychological deficit. And then Robert Rosenthal came along. Robert Rosenthal became famous because of his landmark study in psychology. What he did was he went into random schools and had all the pupils take a test to find the students with the highest potential. Then he went ahead and told the teachers about the students who were most likely to make significant progress through this year. The actual test was a regular IQ test, and in reality, the high potential students were picked completely randomly. That means the outcome of this test was fake. The teachers were not allowed to tell the pupils or anybody else, and they were not given any additional instructions. After a year, the researchers went back to the school and looked how the students were doing. And what Robert Rosenthal found when he came back after this year were pretty much mind-blowing results. Those students who had been randomly labeled high potentials improved not only their grades, but also their IQ levels, even in the long term, and significantly more than their peers. IQ was up till then something that most people thought of as something that's fixed, something that we are born with. And they were able to improve it just because their teachers believed them to improve. And here's the explanation for this. The teachers' beliefs were self-fulfilling prophecies. Self-fulfilling prophecies are, in psychology, beliefs that come true because we are acting as if they are already true. If some of you have heard about the book The Secret, in this book, it's pretty famous, it's been called The Law of Attraction. And it's a book that's coming from the New Age movement, but there's really nothing mystical about it. Our expectation that we will see a particular outcome changes our behavior, which then shapes the way others see us. And in turn, others provide us with certain kind of feedback, and that reinforces our original belief then. And so on and so on. It's an upward spiral. And the same can be a downward spiral if it's a negative belief. If we believe somebody is incapable of improving or incapable of doing math. Here's how Robert Rosenthal explains the study mechanisms. He says that in a very short time, the teachers began to treat those allegedly high potentials differently than the other kids. Those kids began to think of themselves differently, and in the end, they actually performed better than the other kids. The children were transformed simply by the positive expectations of the teacher. And as I just said, unfortunately the same thing has also been proven true when teachers think of certain kids negatively. So how does this self-fulfilling prophecy apply to our lives? Let's say, for example, that I'm going to a party where I don't know many people. If I believe I don't make a good first impression, or I worry that nobody will talk to me, I will probably enter the party acting awkward, anxious, and kind of standoff. And then, people are likely to interact with me with less enthusiasm, or they may ignore me. And this then confirms my belief that I'm not good with people I don't know. On the other hand, if I enter the party believing that I'm good with people I don't know, and expecting to make new friends, then I'm much more likely to be outgoing, engaging, and if somebody in fact doesn't like me, I'm much more likely to not take it personally. As a result, people will likely respond amiable to my friendliness, and I indeed make new friends. So if you ask yourself if this is the power of positive thinking, then the answer is yes and no, because it's actually not that simple. The optimistic mindset is a thinking pattern that enables us to benefit from self-fulfilling prophecies. But there's a problem. It's called the Stockdale paradox. Admiral Stockdale was a high-ranking American military who was caught and tortured during the Vietnam War. In the book Good to Great, James Collins talks to Stockdale and looks at his coping strategy and asks him about this period in his life. Here's what Admiral Stockdale said. He said, "I never lost faith in the end of the story. I never doubted not only that I would get out, but also that I would prevail in the end and turn the experience into the defining event of my life, which in retrospect I would not trade." And then James Collins, the author of Good to Great, asked him, who didn't make it out of Vietnam? And Stockdale replied, "Oh, that's easy. The optimists. They were the ones who said, we're going to be out by Christmas. And Christmas would come and Christmas would go. And then they'd say, we're going to be out by Easter. And Easter would come and Easter would go. And then Thanksgiving. And then it would be Christmas again. And so on. And then, he said, they died of a broken heart." Stockdale then added that this is the very important lesson he learned. You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they might be. And this is what Collins calls the Stockdale paradox. Abraham Maslow, one of the main humanistic psychologists, said the same thing. He said that false optimism sooner or later means He said that false optimism sooner or later means disillusionment, anger, and hopelessness. It is important that our beliefs are grounded in reality, just as Maslow and Stockdale said. Clearly, blind optimism that's detached from reality, has to be avoided, and it's not beneficial. But practical optimism that's grounded in reality and its benefits are now widely established in psychology in general. The question then becomes, well, when should I use the optimistic mindset? And here's when. If you're in an achievement situation, use optimism, like getting a promotion or selling something, writing a difficult report, or winning a game. Secondly, if you're concerned about how you will feel in the future, use optimism. And thirdly, if you want to lead, if you want to inspire others, if you want people to vote for you, then use optimism. For the time when not to use optimism, there's a very easy rule of thumb, and that is, do not use an optimistic mindset when the cost of failure is high. The fundamental guideline for not deploying optimism is to ask whether the cost of failure is high in a particular situation. If the cost of failure is high, optimism is simply the wrong strategy. You do not want pilots in your plane to be optimistic that nothing's going to happen. We want them to be cautious. That's why we all get asked to turn off our phones on the plane, even though it's highly unlikely that there is any effect on the plane's instrument. We want them to be cautious, because here the cost of failure is high. It's death, or at least a catastrophe. Using techniques that minimize those costs is inappropriate. On the other hand, if the cost of failure is low, use optimism. The sales agent deciding whether to make one more call or not loses only his time when he fails. So, the more optimistic salesperson have to be found to way outperform their peers. Because this course is to be based on science, I also want to tell you why this works. Why it is that pessimists and optimists fare differently, and why optimism is better. How do self-fulfilling prophecies work? As we just saw, optimists believe that they can do it. It's about their belief, it's about their mindset. What you believe and what you expect to happen influences our future. The first explanation is that those people are more motivated. They have higher motivation. Ask yourself, in which situations are you more motivated? When you're confident or when you're less confident? Most certainly, your motivation is higher if you feel confident about succeeding. When you feel more confident, you set more challenging goals and you are higher motivated to reach those goals. It's very easy, but that's how it works. The second explanation is that optimists try harder. They are more persistent. They expect good things to happen, so they don't give up easily when they face setbacks. Remember what Admiral Stockdale said? He said to never lose faith that you will prevail in the end. And this faith that you will prevail in the end helps you look at failures and setbacks as a way of, this is just a temporary setback. This is just something to overcome. If I persist, in the end, I will succeed. I will make it. In the next part of the class, when we talk more about mindsets, you will see how the way we perceive failure and setbacks can have tremendous impact on our whole life. And the third reason why optimistic beliefs turn into reality is captured by self-perception theory. One of my favorite ideas is that people become what they do. Self-perception theory turns common wisdom on its head. Common wisdom says that people act the way they do because of their personality traits and their attitudes, right? They return a lost wallet because they are honest, and they recycle the trash because they care about the environment. But research supporting self-perception theory suggests that the reverse also holds true. If we return a lost wallet, we see ourselves returning it, and we see ourselves as honest people. That means, if we track the recycling bin to the trash, we infer that we really care about the environment. We unconsciously look at our behavior to figure out who we are. This is one of my favorite ideas in psychology. It's the idea that people become what they do. They become what they do because they look at their behavior and think, ooh, I must be this kind of person. So somebody who recycles the trash, you look at yourself, you look at your behavior and think, I must be a person who cares about the environment. I must be an honest person because I just returned this wallet. Obviously, we hardly ever think these thoughts consciously. These are unconscious mechanisms. But that is also why they are so powerful. So for these three reasons, we are higher motivated, we are more persistent, and we'll learn about ourselves by looking at our behavior. This is how self-fulfilling prophecies and the optimistic beliefs that we hold become our reality.